I'm in eScribe now.
All right, so as we need to appoint a chair, I will, good evening, everybody. I'll call this meeting to order. It's 5:51 p.m. Procedural note first, this meeting will be held electronically as per section 19.I of the town's procedure bylaw number 622A19 as amended due to the COVID-19 situation. So now we're at appointment of the committee chair, that the committee elect a chair for year 2021 of the Finance Advisory Committee in the 2018 to 2022 term. So could I have a motion, please?
I nominate Sir Kim to chair the meeting.
Second.
Mayor, second that. Anyone opposed?
Do I have to accept?
Pretty much.
Councilor Kim, do you accept that nomination?
Sure.
All right. Well, that motion carries. Councilor Kim, please take the chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I'll take the chair. So are there any, well, it seems such a long time. I forget all the rules here. Anyone with any pecuniary interest? No.
Approval of the agenda first, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so can we have a vote to approve the agenda as is, please?
I'll move.
Okay, so everyone, it's moved by Councillor Thompson, Mayor Marakis. All those in favor? Okay, approved. So I'll just call out to see if there's anyone here with any pecuniary interest of any of the agenda items. No? Okay. So we'll just move forward then with item 1. So can I put this forward to Mr. Gardner to start off, or Ms. Wainwright?
Mr. Chair, first is the minutes.
Okay, that's right. Okay. Can we have the approval of the meeting minutes, of the last meeting minutes
Move the motion to
Yeah,
approve
Marakis.
December 8th.
of December 8th? Sorry, I don't have the agenda with me right now. I just have the agenda 1. Okay.
Gotcha.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Passes. Now can we go on to the pecuniary interest? Anyone with
No.
any pecuniary interest?
No, you're good with that. You're past that.
Okay.
Yeah, and delegations, but there are none, Mr. Chair.
Okay, that's good. Sorry about that. I was just kind of rushing in from outside and my head's all cold.
No worries.
Okay, so can I ask Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel to speak on agenda 1 or item 1?
Okay, to you, Mr. Chair. So item 1 is the line-by-line review for council administration and the Office of CAO's budget materials. So this information was distributed back in December. So if there are any questions, Mr. Nadarozny is here to answer any questions about the Office of CAO, and I will do my best with council.
Thank you, Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel. Does anyone want to start off with any comments or questions on the attachment and item 1? Councilor Thompson?
Thank you. You to Mr. Nadarozny. Doug, when you go down to corporate communications and you look at subscriptions / publications, it shows that the 2020 forecast was 29,148. The approved budget was 30,000. You talked about the discrepancies, and the explanation is the online community consultation tool cost was higher than budgeted in obviously 2019. How were we able to reduce it, or why was it so much higher in 2019 versus 2020?
Doug?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and I might have to go back to, so we've been sorting out some of the communication stuff because our manager is gone, of course, and has been for some time. But I believe this related to the changeover of the tool. The initial cost was higher to get it set up, and then it was, I believe, an ongoing fee after that. So I think that's the difference, but I would want to circle back and get you a definite answer on that.
Great.
Michael?
Thank you. And then with regards to the cost recovery, and you talk about it, the funding project for the graphic designer position, did we hire that person and they've been working? Can you just explain that a little bit?
So through you, Mr. Chair, it was always anticipated that the Library Square, when it's finished and fully operational, would need a full-time communications resource. So that was budgeted in the operating plan for the completed Library Square, and of course was funded through council's 3-year increment of bringing all the operating funds in. Last budget, I believe budget before, I think actually, we showed that we wanted to draw on those funds for a contract position, as there's a lot of marketing that needs to go on related to the construction and also getting the business plan going before the building is completed. So as we move through governance and actually start to market the building to possible users and so on, we know we'd have communications needs before the actual opening of the venue. So as an interim measure, we've hired a person on contract to fulfill that role. The person reports to communications, but has a dotted line responsibility to fill who's the project manager for the Library Square. So that person has been in place now for, I think, about 6 months, maybe a little longer. She came on board since COVID, so maybe it was before summer. It might have been just before summer.
And my last question has to do with your particular budget with regards to consulting. And I get that the 2019 year actuals, not all of it was spent, but just in terms of, what kind of initiatives are you bringing on a consultant for that comes out of this byline?
So the biggest hit in this area, through you, Mr. Chair, has been our ongoing work with the integrated business planning process, where we've engaged Juice and you recall Mr. Brady Wilson, who did some work with council at the beginning of the term. So he's been retained to continue that work and to bring our corporate management team into the business planning process and merging our mission, vision, and values with our business plan with council strategic plan. So it's been a lot of work. There's been a lot of work done the last 24 months in that, and the majority of that has been funded. Initially, some was funded from communications and some other areas that we had, but as we continued more directly into the business planning, I provided the resources for Juice's work most of this year.
Michael?
Thank you very much. And my last question through you to Mr. Natarazi. Looking ahead to 2021, any concerns or issues you think that might impact your budget this year, other than COVID, obviously?
Or Doug?
No, through you, Mr. Chair. No, I don't see anything. We're continuing to refine our approach to communications, but I think it's well resourced, and I don't see any anticipated needs. There might be some juggling of where we put the resources in communications, but I don't see anything, any new needs coming our way from a communications perspective.
All the questions I had. Thanks, Harold.
Okay, thank you. I've asked a couple of questions to Jason earlier, but just from a aesthetic or a template perspective, would it be possible to, similar to what we have on our budget sheets, we have we start out the binder with pie charts with operations. They have X many staff. They have they're 20% of the overall staffing or 15% of the overall town budget. Can we incorporate that into these types of financial statements for us to review, just so that we can put all these numbers in context? Like I noticed Doug's office is like 50% of the town budget. So, something like that, it'd be nice to put into context.
Mr. Chair, I think that's a good idea. We can include a summary page from now on with the information for the various departments and basically model it after what's in the budget binder in terms of the big numbers in terms of its share of the municipal operation and staffing and that sort of thing. I think that'd be easy to pull together a summary page for to start off these reviews.
Great, thank you.
Further to that, Mr. Chair, actually the one that we have for receipt this evening, which is the corporate revenues and expenditures, I believe that is the last one for the term of council. So as we work towards doing the line by line reviews for the next term, we can definitely look at the way we're doing this and provide some of those covering sheets as we move forward.
Okay, great. From a line by line item, I just had a couple of questions. One was, I noticed next to education expense, there's internal grants. I know I asked this question a few years ago, but could someone refresh my memory in terms of what the internal grants are? Ms. Wainwright Van Castle.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask Mr. Gartner to answer this one. Jason?
Hi. We're just looking that up now as we speak. Can you continue and I'll get back to you?
Sure. The other question I had was, I noticed that our dental benefits seem to be going up every year, and I'm just wondering for the benefit of the town, whether it would be beneficial for us to hire personnel with fewer teeth. I didn't expect an answer to that, but I'll just go on to my next question. I noticed that in terms of mobile plan changes, it's a small amount, but there was nothing under the 2017 and 18 years, but then it just appears in 2019. Were mobile charges charged under a different department during the
Yes.
prior to 2019?
Yeah,
Yes, Mr.
prior-
Chair, originally, oh, sorry. I was gonna say, originally those all were consolidated in IT, and IT managed all of the mobile charges. And since then, we've broken it out into the individual departments, and we've asked the individual directors to also play a role in sort of policing, if you will, who gets a phone and how that usage is done, because it was impossible for IT to really be the person to say that so-and-so should or shouldn't have a mobile device. So we've moved back to the directors and the corresponding budgets back to the departments.
Okay. I think that's it. Mr. Gardner, did you have enough time to get your answer?
Yes, sir. I believe you're referencing the sponsorship grant money that's under corporate communications. It's available for parties such as the Chamber of Commerce to apply for sponsorship grant monies for various events that they're putting on.
So that's money that council set aside for applications that will come in from third parties?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, great. Anyone else have any further comments or questions, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I was just going to ask one, Doug, through you, Mr. Chair. Memberships on the council side, does that relate to AMO?
Doug?
To you, Mr. Chair, I believe it does. It could also be FCM. I know we belong to both, and I know both of those, I believe, go through, I think one goes through the CO's budget, one goes through council, I believe.
And I was, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I
Sorry.
believe the FCM membership was in there, and as part of the budget for 2021, we had the discussions at FAC to look at removing that from council's budget to incorporate some savings, because we do not need the membership fees, as I don't think we have a member on FCM at this time. And it also does include the AMO membership. Jason just texted me.
So the full, so for the 2020 forecast, it says 12,649. That's for both FCM and AMO?
Wainwright Van Castle?
Yes. Yes, it does. Jason just said yes.
Okay, and I'm gonna and thank you, Miss Wainwright Van Castle, and Mr. Chair. I'm just gonna do a little bit more digging as far as the fees, because we pay a membership fee at the town, but the region also pays a fee, and it's based on population. And so I'm just gonna do a little bit more digging, because I've always believed that there's a little bit of double dipping and when it comes to those fees. And so I'll get back to everyone and let you know what I've come up with, because I'm going to do some digging at the regional level as well as we go through our budget in March. So thank you for those answers.
Thank you. Michael?
Just to go back to Jason's response to your question. So I thought you were referring to internal grants, which is line item 5999, which
That's what I was referring to, actually.
in 2019, we didn't spend anything. And in 2020, the forecast is $121. So I just want to make sure that Jason's response is for that line. If you can just confirm that.
Jason?
Yeah.
Okay.
Short and
Okay,
sweet.
thank you.
I think if I might, Mr. Chair, I think that might be we'll have to look at the labeling of that account. I don't know that it should say internal grants. I
agree.
think they're grants that we internally give out, but if you recall, this was to avoid, if this is the right one, this is to avoid the situation where at the 11th hour, the chamber stood up and asked for sponsorship at a budget process. And we had the budget pretty much all nailed down, and they came up and asked for 15,000 for a whole series of events. And so to avoid that in the future, the following year, we brought forward a policy that said, if we get sponsorship value, if it's something of value to the community, if there's certain criteria, the exposure that the town gets, and for an event that we see as contributing to the benefit of the community, then staff would be authorized to make grants on a certain, based on a criteria. And so that's the grant money we've been managing since then. And so the chamber, for example, when they do one of their special events, they would say, well, here's what you're going to get. You're going to get, a page in the program. Sometimes the mayor might get opening comments to be able to make some comments as well. Things like that we would get, a marker at the table. And so each one of those events would be weighed on their own merits, and we would give them a grant to support that event. So the chamber is the biggest user of that. The other things are fairly small compared to the chamber events.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? Wendy or John, did you have any questions at all? No?
No,
John?
thanks.
Just a quick one, just on salaries full-time for corporate communications. Is that primarily driven by the manager's vacancy?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, the manager at some point in 2020 switched to long-term disability coverage, so that would no longer be drawing on the salary account.
So that 135, that's mainly that position.
Just a second here. I'm seeing where you're looking for 135. 1 second. Salaries. Yes, the decrease. Yeah, well, there's that, and there was a maternity leave as well, though, that we only partially covered with contracting help. So there was other vacancies that drove that number, but the lion's share of it is the manager who was off.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that passes. Okay, next item. Okay. Item 2, capital projects updates. Pass that over to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
And Mr. Chair, I'll pass that over to Mr. Nader Rosny.
Doug?
Certainly here. I'm just pulling this up here. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Probably should let Leanne speak to this. This is her work, but certainly she does it on behalf of the organization. We're just, as we do at every FAC, reporting on the major projects that are underway, which are the Library Square, the Fire Hall 4-5, and the Joint Operations Center additional work. Library Square, we did have a meeting of the task force today, actually, so there was a detailed review of the status of that given to the task force, but For the most part, we're on target. There's a bit of a delay in what was the original plan opening date for the library renovations, which were moved up to take advantage of the fact that the library isn't opened during the COVID period. So they put a heavy emphasis on getting a lot of that construction done up front, and they were hoping to be turning that over to us as a completed project by the end of July. But as a result of a couple of delays related to gas line relocation and some other things that have come up during the demolition, they've pushed that out to September. But that has no impact at this time on the completion date of the overall project. It's just the completion date of the project within the project. All other parts of the project are moving ahead more or less as planned. Again, there's a little bit of a delay with the gas line that they ran into that had to be shut off before they could finish the demolition on the Church Street School. But that has now been done and the demolition is almost complete. Actually, the demolition of the Church Street School section at the back is completed, but they're now working on the foundation underpinning in anticipation of the soil work and the structural work to build the addition. The project manager did report that there's some 17 change orders currently under review. They haven't been finalized yet, but with everything that's been presented, they're estimating something in the order of $60,000 or $70,000 in possible change order costs, all well within the contingency. They'd be funded within the contingency, so no impact on the project budget. A number of those changes are also $0 items. I know from a tour that I did myself, there was things, so to give an example, the kind of things that we run into, one of the walls that was to be demolished inside the library to make room for the new foyer and the main floor at the Yonge Street entrance. Actually, there was the control panel for the alarm system was in that wall. And so that just was missed in the drawings. And of course, that was a little more major than just taking a wrecking ball to it. We had to relocate that panel. And so that would be the kind of thing that would result in a change order and a little additional expense. But that work has been done. And overall, we're quite happy with the work of our general contractor and the pace of the project so far. Moving to Fire Hall 4-5, we're again on task with that. All of the piers, the helical piers that we had to, that was the change order related to the soil conditions that we found. Those are all in, and now the foundation work is well underway. I believe this week, if it isn't there already, I think early this week, the structural steel was to arrive on site, and so you should start to see the structure going up. Again, another contractor we happen to be very pleased with in terms of the ongoing communication with them. I've participated in all those site plan meetings as well, and they've gone very well. And we're quite happy with the progress there. That project is on time. In fact, one could argue it's a little ahead of time because they thought some of the weather's been really good for the foundation and the concrete work. So I think they've moved a little faster even than they thought they would have during the winter. And then finally, the Joint Operations Center, you see most of that work is now complete. There's a couple of things that will move to the spring and summer of 2021, but we still are within budget and all of the various things have been done. There have been hiccups along the way. We had some issues with the gate, the automated gate control, and some wiring issues. So most of these things took longer than anticipated, but we're still within budget. So it was more around trying to find a new path to do some of the things that we wanted to do. So that project is also in a good shape and on budget so far. With that, Mr. Chair, if there's any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Thanks, Doug. I don't have any questions. Michael?
Thank you. Just, I guess, one question, one comment. So to the chart on page 20, our red, yellow, green chart, how do we determine the start date of a project? Because Library Square says the start date is July 2nd, 2018. So I'm just curious, how was that determined as the start date for Library Square? And then it says, essentially the timeline is 4.5 years. Which coincidentally, Doug's been here 5 years, so I don't know if that has any correlation or not, but.
So I'm just looking for that attachment here. Oh, Leanne's going to come to my rescue. Here she comes.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. So actually, the answer to this question is that we call the project a start when we allocated resources to the project and we start study of the project. The first study of this project started at 2018. So we call it as the start of the Library Square project.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one because, we've had many starts and stops along the way. I mean, we had the work from FOTAN, which goes way back before 2018 as well. And there's been money allocated at different times. I get that, but I guess, what I look at really from this chart is more from the construction schedule, right? From the moment we've really tendered the project to how long we think it's going to be going, as opposed to, how long did we discuss it, talk about it, conceptualize it, and go from there. So, to me, if you weren't too familiar with this project, you would think that it took 4.5 years to build Library Square. And conceptually, you could say, sure, they debated Library Square and the vision for it for the first 2 years before we really put the tender out. But, I guess I'm looking more from we didn't really develop a schedule for Library Square until we awarded the tender and said, okay, now we know the timelines are. And so I think for myself, and when we're going to identify these kind of construction projects itself, maybe the beginning date is actually when council approves the tender, and that's really the start. Because before then, as much as we talk about it and conceptualize it, it's never an approved project, even though resources may be there. I guess they're not officially allocated, and I just think it gives a better communication to the public about how long this construction project really is. But that's my thoughts. Harold, Mayor?
Mr. Mayor?
If I can just jump in for 1 second, I would say that I think that's a valid point, and we certainly could record it that way. I think it's all in how we label the project, right? I think to your point, Councillor Thompson, if it was the construction summary, then the start date is the date that we award the tender, and that's when the project gets started. In the case of Library Square, of course, there was 1.5 years of design work where council put significant resources to it. So the project file was certainly open. Yeah. And, we had a pretty good idea of the volume, the magnitude of the project, although it was refined over time. So it's really just about being clear about what we call these things. But you're right, I get, which is most of these, as we're reporting here, really are construction on all three of those, because even the fire hall would, you could argue by the same logic, goes back a lot farther than that. When we had the misstart, we had to redesign and all the rest. So we could be pushing that date way back. So I think it's just clarifying and being consistent with our approach to what we're reporting.
Really, that's where I'd like us to go, is be consistent. And that's why I think the tender date's that's a fixed date as opposed to a concept date. Now, if you want to add another column and say, here's when we begin, but here's actually when the tender was awarded, and that's the actual, the number of days that the project's been under construction, maybe that's the compromise. But yeah, the fire hall and Library Square are interesting because for sure I could say the fire hall, the project didn't start on May 20th, 2020. It goes long before that too. So
yeah, we'll refine that for sure.
Sure, thank you.
And then my other one was really just a real comment, and I know Councillor Kim had touched upon this before, with regards to the paragraph on page 2 that speaks to the delay for the library. I think any time, because, obviously this project is, very much in the public's eyes, I think anytime we talk about a delay, it would probably be best to provide more context around that. We certainly had lots of discussion at our Library Square meeting today in the sense that while that one aspect of the project is delayed due to other work continued on, and that's why the schedule for completion is still targeted for the 16th in 2022. It's just because of certain things with regards to the Enbridge gas and bell lines, they just had to switch their focus, and so it created a little bit of a delay on one hand for this aspect of the project, but overall we're still on target, and maybe we can provide some more context, because I'm sure members of the public are going to read this and they may not have all the details that members of council have.
Sure.
That's it.
Thanks, Michael. Before I go to Wendy, Mr. Mayor, did you have your hand up before?
No, Mr. Chair. Well, I did, Mr. Chair, but I was just going to Councillor Thompson was asking if how we felt about the dates on the thing, and I was just gonna say I agreed with his perspective, so that's why I had my hand up. So.
Okay, thank you. Wendy, as an auditor, do you have any observational questions?
Well, I have a question for Doug. Doug, you know, when we say that there was delay or change or extra cost or whatever because of soil conditions, I don't understand how these conditions are not assessed in advance of the project. I mean, it's quite clear that we have soil and water problems in Aurora. How could you miss something like that?
Just to be clear, Wendy, there are no soil problems with Library Square.
No, I'm talking about the JOC. It's the fire hall. Yeah.
Doug?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, you know, you really need the engineers here to speak to this, but in the simplest way that I can explain it with my limited knowledge, when you're doing the soils analysis, you're doing samples all over the site and you're getting a sense of what's on the site and the basic composition of the site. When you actually get through the entire finished design process, it's only then that you figure out, for example, the pressures that are going to be on the foundation walls and how the building is going to be anchored into the ground. And it's not until then that you fully understand what the forces are, and you also understand where exactly those forces are going to be. And so it's when you are preparing to do those foundations and you're getting ready that when you come into the excavation phase, and then you start finding soil right in line with where that wall is going to go, and so you can't pour a foundation there, so you need to put a pile in, and then you don't know how far the pile has to go because you're hoping to avoid piles, so you certainly didn't drill down 100 feet as part of your soil testing to see where the bedrock was because you're not anticipating that you're going to have to do that. So it's an iterative process, and in the case of the fire hall, there was the solution that was provided by the engineers involved putting these helical piles in to make sure that there was there was enough there to support the foundation. So, I mean, you can do more work at the front end and try to ascertain that, but until you have the design of the building completed, you really don't know exactly what you're going to need anyway. So there's always going to be some variation, but I get your point. It's how much pre-work do you do to narrow the risk in terms of changes to the actual construction when you get in the field.
Well, and financial surprises.
Right.
So, yeah. Thank you, Doug.
I will say that we are still within the contingency on that one. So we're still, from a financial perspective, we're comfortable that the project is on track financially.
Thank you. And I also agree that certainly with Library Square in particular, I mean, the more information we can give the public to make it clearer, the better it is for the public and for council.
Okay.
Yes, I agree 100%. And we have dedicated a lot of resources to communications and to making sure that we get as much information out as possible about the progress of Library Square, both from an interest perspective to see the project develop, but also in terms of the details about how the construction is proceeding and how the budget is going. And again, right now we feel we're in good shape.
Yes, but in particular to Michael's point about saying there's a delay, maybe just, add some clarity to that. Thank you.
Absolutely. This project is really, as we've said a number of times, it's really 4 separate projects. And so we have to be careful with the language when we say something's delayed, that doesn't necessarily mean that the project is delayed. It's just that aspect of the project is going to take a little longer than the contractor originally scheduled. For most of those things, we didn't even have individual targets. Our only target to the general contractor was to have the thing completed in August of 2022. And so it's only when we talk about delays now, we're talking about delays from what they planned as they got into the work. And so they're just being honest with how things are changing for them. But in a technical way, as long as we don't push that August date out, we're always on time. But we are trying to report and be really upfront with council and the community about the 4 projects within the project and how they're individually going as well.
Thank you.
Wendy, some members of council keep bugging the project team for milestones and target dates. And so
some do.
I just think as far as the public is concerned, when you say Library Square, they're taking it as a whole. So let's make sure there are no misunderstandings with this.
Yes, agreed.
Thank you. Okay, so if there's no questions, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That passes. Okay, so we'll move on to draft work plan for the Finance Advisory Committee. And I'm not sure if it's going to be Leanne again or Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So this is a bit of an outline of our plan for this year with the FAC meetings and the items that we want to address throughout the year. So as you can see, after next month, we will have completed all the detailed budget reviews, as I mentioned earlier, and we'll be turning our attention to a number of other items. It's a fairly aggressive work plan, but we wanted to make sure that we hit on some of the key things that are happening with respect to finance as we move forward. One of those bigger elements as we move forward is in the April meeting. We are looking to give you a bit of an overview of the fiscal strategy and the strategic objectives that will be included as part of the strategy before we get into the detailed presentation to council, which will happen in June. So among other things, we'll be giving an update on the ERP system in May. We have the second generation asset management plan, which will also be going to council into committee in July. We'll be giving you an update of that in June, just to get some feedback before we go forward. And then in the latter part of the year, just some more regular updates, including also an update on where we're at with our procurement modernization, because that's one of the other bigger projects that we have going on in finance this year. So we're hoping to make some strides there too. And then in December, we'll be starting to do a bit more regularly, some updates on where we're at with the fiscal strategy, because as we move forward with our fiscal strategy, and you'll see that comes later, when that comes forward to you later, there's going to be a number of strategic actions that are going to fall out of it that are going to take a fair bit of time to accomplish over the next few years. So this is what we're suggesting as the planned agenda for the meetings as we move forward.
Thank you, Rachel. I think it looks like a pretty complete and thorough work plan. One thing that came to mind, I thought that was missing. Would it be possible to add within the major project update portion the IT strategic plan? I mean, we've been, there's a lot of monies invested in that, and we know that we've had some challenges in prior iterations. And, we always, talk about its significance in all parts of our corporation, whether it be in IT and finance, CRM, and Access Aurora. So is it feasible to include that as part of our large project updates?
I'll take that. Through you, Mr. Chair, I think we could do that. Council will be getting a separate report on the progress of the strategic plan, but I think it is something we can factor into the FAC review as well, because as you said, there's a lot of resources that council has dedicated to it over a 3-year period, and so I think interim updates to this committee would be appropriate.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, Michael?
Thank you. I agree with your comment about the IT, and perhaps, a good spot is when we talk about the financial solution, and the ERP, maybe that's when we get an update on that as well, but I'll leave that to staff. But through you to Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel, certainly I like the topics we're looking to tackle this year with regards to the asset management plan, the fiscal strategy. Could you just sort of touch a little bit, maybe just from a high level, on the fiscal strategy and some of your thoughts that you're looking to either change or implement here in Aurora? I guess April, but I'd like a little sneak preview.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have still yet to give Doug his sneak preview, but what we're looking at is building on a lot of what we've already started doing. And we're looking at fiscal strategy pillars. So we've actually come up with 4 pillars so far of areas that we need to look at and focus on from a fiscal perspective. So that's capital planning, reserve management, debt management, and we've also added revenue management in there as well. And what we're doing is we're going to be looking at these 4 different areas from a few different perspectives. So we have these elements and perspectives that we're going to look at it from. whether it be asset management, managing growth, the multi-year budget, master plans and studies, and then also considering intergenerational equity at the same time. And as we look at these items, we're looking to establish strategic objectives. So this is very much a policy-based approach. It's not, when you think of a fiscal strategy, you may think there's going to be a lot of numbers and number crunching coming towards you. This is all very much a policy-based approach, and this will be proposing the policy for council to approve as we move forward with finances in the next few years. So this will set those objectives that will guide finance and all the work that we do moving forward. So what's going to result is we're probably going to end up with probably about a 5-year plan or so of different items that are going to come forward to FAC and council over that period of time. And it might be creating new policies, doing financial analysis. It's going to be a comprehensive plan as we move forward. And then you'll get a bit of a sneak peek of what those strategic objectives are at a high level in April.
Great. No, I look forward to it. I think it's wonderful. The only question I had that I don't see here, and I'm not sure where it stands, is the One Investment Program. You know, of course, you know, we missed the deadline. COVID came. The markets, you know, went down at the time. And so, where does things stand with One Investment? Is it still your thought for us to join that group at some point, or is that just we've moved away from that?
So through you, Mr. Chair, that actually is going to be coming out as one of those strategic actions that we'll be looking at under revenue management, because part of revenue management is investing wisely with our reserves. And we're looking to leverage other non-tax and rate sources of income to be able to mitigate the impact on our tax and rate payers. And one of those things is earning money on our investments. So part of it will be that we will be looking at re-engaging with One Investment, and it will be part of one of those strategic actions. We haven't completely separated away from it. We are still in contact with the people at One Investment, and we are looking at moving forward with that. We've just put it on pause, but we haven't stopped.
That's it for me. Thanks, Earl.
Mr. Mayor, did you have anything? No? Thanks, Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel. If there are no further questions, then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That passes. New business.
We have one other item.
Oh, sorry. That's right.
It's just to receive.
Yeah, just to receive. So could I have a motion to, I guess, put this on the table to receive Mayor Marakis and Councillor Thompson? Put it to a vote then. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that passes. Okay, new business. Anyone have any new business? Nothing for you, Michael, Mayor? Okay. So I guess I'll just, could I have a motion to adjourn then? Councillor Thompson, Mayor Marakis, all those in favor? Opposed? None. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thanks,
See you
everyone.
guys in a few minutes.
See you soon.